What is a DAO from your perspective?
Yes. So first of all, yeah, DAO is decentralized autonomous organization. So which the idea behind that is we're all still figuring out what that is and how it works. Um, but the idea is if you can have an organization, starting from the last word, that is decentralized and that it's automated. And so we work in decentralized means that there isn't we don't have a top-down approach where you have a CEO on the top and person cleaning the toilets in the bathroom, whatever. We don't have that pyramid structure.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's like one aspect you could look at it's like a co-op. So where everyone has almost like a stake, and that's kind of it's decentralized because in Web3, it's a Web3 approach to organizations. Um, Everything is automated. So if someone can let's say if we have meetings, everyone can get that's a very simplified explanation, but if everyone comes to a meeting, they get a token. If everyone do some work, they get a token. So you get paid in these tokens, and over time they have value because now, we're putting all this sweat equity behind it, and that's worth something. And then someone else later, as we've now built something, wants to come and join us. Now they gotta buy that token and be part of that. So we all co-creating this thing together, and it's decentralized because it's automated and decentralized because let's say there's tasks allocated. Let's say on a Discord server, and it's like, oh, we need a marketing person, and someone can come in. It's like, well, and if someone does this task, it's gonna worth 100 tokens. So someone off the internet could literally come to the Discord, see that that's needed, get it done, and gets his 100 tokens and leave. Like literally, that's one aspect. But the aspect that I'm way more interested in that I want to talk a little bit about is that we're trying to do things differently on this planet. So we've had corporations. To me, DAOs could replace corporations and governments. Because the government's an organization, a company is an organization, a corporation is an organization. It's just structuring those things differently. Also, as we're doing this decentralized and automated things, we explore the conversation of governance. How do we govern ourselves? And that governance also, again, being somewhat automated. That decisions could be, the big thing in crypto we talk about is we have trustless systems, which means you write the code. So it's not fully trustless. You got to trust the code, but we would seed the code, and the code says this what happens, this how it's happening. So if let's say $1 comes, there's 10% for marketing, there's 10% for for construction, there's 50% for building the product that we're trying to build, there's 20% for salaries, whatever. Like, so we program, and then everyone knows that $1 comes in, that's where it goes, and then it's transparent. So it's a trustless system, meaning we trust the code that's been written. That's kind of where Casey's technostic really comes in. It's like, oh, now God becomes the code that we wrote. Of course, it could be altered, and it could be decisions of how you alter that code. So I'm a big believer in a big stance for DAOs. But again, the aspect that excites me the most is like, how do we do things differently on this planet? And I like to say that DAO is only as powerful as its community, because to have that, you need to have a strong community. And I think of a DAO as a school of fish. Like, we all move as one. There's some intelligence that we don't even understand, how this school of fish can move as one organism. And actually, the way predators even be able to catch one, is to separate one fish away from the school, and that's the vulnerable fish that they can catch. As long as they stay together, it's counterintuitive because it's a big thing, and a shark comes in, but because they're one, they know how to move as one to avoid the shark. If it was one fish, it's way more vulnerable. So I'm like, can we move to this like a flock of birds and school of fish? So that's kind of my answer for what a DAO is.
Yeah, I love that. Beautiful. Yeah, there's a lot of things that I'm writing down, I want to point out. It seems like the trustless thing. Couldn't we just use the opposite word? Because aren't we sort of like, are we actually saying that there's trust in the trustless? Like, seems like a little oxymoron there, but.
It is oxymoron, but like, let's say a corporation trusts the board of directors to do the right thing. So you're trusting those,
Right.
and you don't
So
know.
we're trusting, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but now we're trusting a code that's been pre-written and it's transparent, everyone can see it.
Awesome. I think another really fun, a powerful analogy that we can keep using is the bees, because they're so ancient and so smart in the way that they work and the way that it's a fascinating, fun way. But I like the fish and I love the birds as well. It's really fantastic. And I love seed the code. That's so good. I'm gonna seed the code. Okay. Getting sexy. All right. So can you tell me more about, because I'm understanding decentralization is the antidote to the top-down, somewhat, the pyramid. Can you explain to me a little bit more about decentralized currency and why is it important?
I mean, decentralized currency is essentially that we're creating our own internal economy. And the value that we give to that currency is it's almost like being publicly traded company since day one. So the public decides how valuable this company is by how much they're willing to invest in it. So that's the simplest way to put it. That's why the FCC is so behind it. This is that's why they deem it right away as what's the word? Anyway, that's the simplest way to put it. It's like we become publicly traded, so we become an internal economy. And so if someone wants to buy our token, they want to buy it because now we've proven at some point that there's this what we're doing out in the world is valuable and it has an upside and it's going to keep growing. So owning that token will keep giving you more. We keep value. So someone can be buying this token from a speculative perspective, but someone can be buying it because, also there could be value behind these tokens, again, with the whole automation and how the code's written. By owning this token, you get this perk, or by owning this token, you have this rights, or it could be voting rights, it could be promises in the future that you're going to get something in return. It could be written many different ways. So you start to create your own economy, and it could be infinitely creative with this. And that's kind of, it goes back to also governance, because you could play with governance when you have tokens. But it's almost a little bit above, like, I don't have 100% what's the best strategy there, at least for us, in terms of how to best play with those currencies. Like, we know we want to play with NFT in a very specific ways. But with currency, we still haven't quite figured that out, because these are hard questions. So, governance and internal economies are hard questions to answer.
Big stuff.
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. So let's just switch into the origin story, and I just love to know, how did SoilDAO come into being, Christian?
Oh my God,
Big questions day, baby. It's a big question.
I love answering this question, but I don't how far.
Right, like how far back in the origin do you go, right?
But the origin was, this is the story that really. So when COVID started, I went down. There are a few things that happened. When first COVID started, they said only the immunocompromised are affected by that. Then they changed the term, but then in the end ended up being actually the case. But anyway, So I was like, what would it take for me to have my immune system to the next level?
Yeah.
And really got me down up. And I consider myself pretty healthy at that point, but that was just like,
Mhm.
And it led me down to a lot of cool things. One, just a side note that I realized all the things that matter for our health are free, kind of like exercise and spending time in nature and spending time on the sun and meditating and cold plunges and walking barefoot on the dirt. And so all these things are free and they're the most impactful things for our health.
Mhm.
But one aspect of our health is we are what we eat, right? Like, then going down that rabbit hole, realizing that it all stems from the soil. If our soil is depleted, everything else is depleted, including us. So even if you're eating healthy, a lot of stuff you go to the grocery store and says organic on it, doesn't mean that it comes from a healthy soil. So what a healthy soil is one that's very rich on microbial life, very biodiverse, full of minerals and all the stuff. And even if you eat super healthy, if the soil that food comes from, it's still not healthy enough. And there's like statistic where our food today, it's lost 90% of its nutrients from 100 years ago. So if you eat an apple to get the same nutrients today, you need to eat 10 apples to get the same amount of nutrients as your grandparents did. So that was kind of devastating. And then I got into permaculture. I took up permaculture 6 months long. It was very extended 6 months course. And we explored every part of permaculture. And permaculture has been asking a lot of this question, including that kind of internal economy, kind of like, well, how do we do things different on this planet? At the same time, shortly after COVID started, they start printing money. That's the end of days. And back then, I used to say, I don't know what I'm more scared of, COVID or them printing more money. And I came to the answer that I was more scared of them printing money, like it's the end of days. Thank God the rest of the world also was printing money like crazy. So it kind of it balanced things out. But let's say if the rest of the world wasn't, and the dollar would have been totally completely in the garbage right now. But the half 40% or half 50% of all the money in existence that have ever existed since day one were printed during COVID. And most people don't know that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's
40%?
yeah, it's those 2 years we printed 40% of the money that ever existed.
That's
So
obscene.
pretty scary stuff. So then that got me really down into the rabbit hole of crypto.
Right.
And slowly what I realized with crypto, the same what I was really passionate about crypto is because it's this whole, for the first time in human history, I felt like we have a technology that's built by the people for the people. What a DAO is. Like we the people are building it and it's available to the people. They can come and be a part of it. They can contribute. It's like Bitcoin. It was built by a bunch of, normal people, and it was built for the people.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know of any other time in history where something was built by the people for the people on such a large scale and that is available globally. Um, that really excited me. So it slowly started going into, and then I was going down those two paths at the same time, realizing that that both of those share a lot of the same principles.
Mhm.
And I was like, and also one thing that's missing in crypto, that's slowly changing, but it's like it was very digital and very esoteric, and like it was all concepts, and there were amazing concepts. It was like, well, how does this apply in the real world? So I was all constantly asking the question, how do we apply real to this to everyday use? How does crypto becomes impacting our everyday experience? So I was asking that question, and then so I was in this deep inquiry during those 2 years of COVID, and then I realized that they shared a lot of the same principles. And then literally there was an expert that came to a permaculture class one day to teach us about alternative ways of doing things like time banks and different stuff like that. And I'm waiting for her to talk about crypto at some point. She talked about some people print their own currencies, a lot like a town can create their own currency. And the idea is it's backed 1-to-1 to, let's say, to a dollar. And a lot of places around the world have done that. They even printed their own money. The idea is that you keep the money in the community. It's actually worked very effectively because you can only spend that money in that city. So if I buy a piece of bread there, the guy that bought the bread could go across the street and get coffee with the same money, but he cannot go in the next town and buy coffee there. So it keeps the money, it grows the local economy. A lot of really fascinating stuff. She didn't mention crypto once. I'm like, what? We talking about alternative economy, alternative currencies here, and you won't even mention crypto? Like, what's going on here? And I was like, well, the most decentralized thing you can do is growing your own food. And most people don't get that because our food supply is so centralized, and there's a lot of places in America, one of the most developed countries in the world, we have food deserts where the only place you could get food is Walmart.
Yeah.
Walmart shuts down, you got no place to get food.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, literally, like, anyway, so long story short, this is where it all comes together. I was like, crypto is very bold and very brave to think about taking on the world, and it's thinking globally. And permaculture people think very local, which I think they're beautiful things to both things. But I think when it comes to soil, to me, that's a global problem. We're facing that on a global scale, and a lot of places in the world is way worse than others. Being in California, where it's not that bad, but there's places around the world where we already currently today we have what's called climate refugees, where people literally have to migrate the whole community, the whole thing, to another place because the soil is no longer fertile. They can't grow food there anymore. So and then we have places in the world, like Africa, there's desert where you can see places are getting greener and greener because people are using these permaculture principles. So I was like, well, these people are a little stuck in the mud, and these people are lost in the clouds a little bit. We need to bring them together. I'm like, how do I bring these two together? How do I bring this together? How do I bring these two together? And then I learned about DAOs, and I was like, SoilDAO.
Brilliant.
So that's the kind of the origin story. Then at the same time, I start also learning about sovereignty stuff and what sovereignty is. And then I start meeting. I met so many people in the permaculture space, so I recognize three problems from my point of view. One is we don't have sovereignty over the land. I met with a lot of people that want to do really beautiful regenerative stuff on their land that they own, but they don't really own it because who really owns it is the United States of America Corporation, which most people know that exists. And that's why I got to pay property taxes, because you're truly paying your true landlord, which is the state. And as such, even in your deed, people are like, oh, I bought my house. You read the deed, you're just borrowing it from the state. So it's like, wow. So these people, it's a lot of places, it's illegal to have compost toilets. That's such a bizarre thing in my mind.
Yeah.
So, and there's so many little things. Let's say, forget that there's even evil and there's out there someone like trying to do things, which I think there is. But even for very simple things, we have such an antiquated, is that the word? Antiquated laws that don't apply, and they were like from 100 years ago, and someone put it in there, and now you can't remove it. It's just you cannot do the regenerative practices that we need to restore our soil.
Yeah.
And I've met people literally straight up tell me, it's like, I am ready to take my gun and walk down to City Hall and start fucking shooting and be like, because we want to do something so beautiful and so simple. And I have other people that put up a fence all around their land. Be like, if you're not invited here, you the only way if you walk through this gate, you'll be staring at my barrel of my gun. Because and I don't care if you're sheriff or otherwise, because I'm doing what I want to do with my land, and you're not telling me what to do. So
Yeah.
first of all, we don't have sovereignty over our land. The second problem I see is financial, like a lot of great ideas, but there's no resources behind it. And the third problem I see, which is sort of has to do with governance.
Yeah.
So governance is people coming together, trying to make decisions together to do a regenerative project, and they all come with great ideas, but because they don't have the proper agreements and structures and shit falls apart because of the people.
Yeah.
The hardest part of any business, you can ask any business owner, will tell you it's the people.
Yeah.
We'll figure out everything else, but how to deal with the people.
Yeah.
And I used to say that, but now I feel like I've, there is a way to deal with the people. And Web3 really tries to answer this question, which is around governance and how do we make decisions as an organization.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is probably going to be my longest answer of all the questions, but
I
since
love
that was my origin, I was the one that came up with that original idea.
that. Well, since you were right on that edge, tell me a little bit more about what is Web3? What do you mean when you say Web3? I didn't even know we were on a Web 2. Can you explain a little bit about that for us
Yeah.
newbies, people who are just like, internet is internet? What does that mean?
Well, so internet, so web one,
Web 1.
web one was, well, we can only extract information from the internet. It was one directional. You go there to get information, kind of like Yellow Pages. That was one of the first apps. Is how to put Yellow Pages on the internet. Maps, so you go there to only gather information. So
Got it.
yeah, Web 2 became more when we start interacting with the internet. So social media being a perfect example of that. The problem with that became very obvious quite fast is that now we contribute to the internet, but the internet's and because that's why those services are free, like Facebook, all these services are free because we're giving them. They don't exist out of us. If you all close your Facebook account, Facebook doesn't exist. So we're giving them all the data, and they make billions of dollars from that data, but we don't see a penny out of that. And only that, but they own your data. We have no digital ownership, and we don't have digital rights. So the moment you put anything on any platform in the Web2 world, whether it's a YouTube video on YouTube or a message or a picture on Facebook, Facebook owns that photo. They own the rights to it. They can do whatever the fuck they want with it.
Videos, I know.
They can make money on it. And so you have no digital rights.
Censor it. Yeah.
That's Web2. So Web3.
Okay.
Oh, and the other thing that's quite fascinating about the internet, as it is so far, is that the person that invented the internet, you can arguably make it one of the greatest inventions that has changed lives of everyone on this planet. He didn't make any money on it. There's no money to make on the internet.
Right.
uh,
Oh, we'll just hope he gets blessed by the gods.
oh, bless his soul.
Yep.
And so the deal with Web3 is that there's two. So we have digital rights, we have
Okay.
digital ownership, and we pay for the internet though.
I see.
So let's say Ethereum, people think of, well, what's Ethereum? Why is there Ethereum? Why there's Solana? Why is there Bitcoin? Think of Ethereum as its own internet. So it's its own internet, and to interact on the internet, you have to pay what's called gas fees. So for me to send you money, I gotta pay gas fees. For you to do anything, I gotta send gas fees. So, but as such, it's decentralized. We don't have the overload
Yeah.
of Facebook. So let's say Facebook was and a Web3 platform is we all know the content.
Hmm.
And as the content becomes more valuable, we all have tokens. So that's why Ethereum now costs, let's say, $3,000. So that means my token went up too, right? So I get paid, you get, so every time there's a transaction, we also get paid. And so we all grow together. So that's what I say. It's a technology that's built for the people, by the people. So if the Ethereum ecosystem grows, if I'm part of it, I'm engaged in it, I'm playing in it, I grow with it.
Yeah.
My tokens value grow in it too, right? So, and the reason we created a lot more internets than just Ethereum is because the Ethereum, the way it was the first one, it was very clunky, it's slow, it costs a lot. Those gas fees cost a lot of money. There was an app that I looked at recently where it could show you, again, being decentralized and transparent, I could go and see all the gas fees I have spent since the beginning of time, and it's currently at current prices around $15,000.
Wow.
So it's really, but it was worth it to me, right? Because I made money on those transactions, or I made some. Um, so we have other, platforms like Solana. The gas fees are a fraction of a penny, and it's fast and it's efficient, and but so there's anyway. So not to go too long, but if I create any digital thing on Web3, let's say I put a picture in a Web3 platform somehow, it has a cryptographic address to it, and I could even put it in a way where I could write the code in it. Let's say with art being a great example. So that's NFTs, right? So if I create a piece of art, I think about how much Van Gogh sells for today, 20, 30, 50 million dollars. His ancestors don't see a penny out of that, right? But that changes now with digital rights, because if I create something, I can write it in a code that every time it changes hands, 5% goes to the original creator.
Right.
So if today I sold it for 100, but 10 years from now it says for 20 million, I still gonna get 5% of that 20 million instantly directly to my wallet. I don't have to know who is doing, where they're doing it. They go right to the original creator, and it can't cheat it. That's why because it's in the code. That's why it's trustless. I need to trust the dealer that sells it 10 years from now to come knock on and say, "Yeah, I sold you a penny. Here's 5. Here's your 5%." So that's why I mean it's trustless.
Yes.
I don't need to know anything. I wake up in the morning, I have 5% of my art that got back to me. Um, so that's what a Web3 is trying to figure it out, and it's obviously stumbling. It's still very
Yeah. And it's new and it's in its early stages and we're all figuring out and like you said, everyone's we're in the beginning, we're just starting out this journey. So we don't know the answers. We're just brave enough to be pioneers to get into something new.
exactly.
Love it. I think I understand a little more of that. Thank you so much for breaking that down. And there's so much more we could get into around Web3 and how that works and how SoilDAO wants to participate in that. But I think that's more videos later.
Okay.
Awesome. So can you talk to me, darling, about what is an earth trust? We've used the word trust a lot, and we've talked about trustless with Web3. Now I want to get in a little bit to the nuts and bolts, a little bit into the soil DAO, what is an earth trust? What's happening here when we talk about that?
Great question. So the thing what I'm excited about SoilDAO is that we're trying to incorporate this old technology like an earth trust, like a trust. Trust is very ancient technology. We've been using that for a long, very, very long time. And then Web3 is very new technology. So what we're doing with SoilDAO is bringing those two together, which that really excites me. But what a earth trust is, it's like there's two aspects to it. There's trusts that are statutory, if you will, and there's private trusts, and they're different. And like a lot of rich people, they leave their inheritance in a trust, and it has a certain. So a trust is something that again, like this trustless code, where you write inside what are the how something should be handled,
Yeah.
and that cannot be broken, right? So when we talk about earth trust, as you can be like, you're right in the trust of how this piece of earth is going to be stewarded or taken care of, or what's allowed, not allowed, and that kind of cannot be protected. So it kind of a thing that seems to make a lot of sense to a lot of people is conservation easements.
Mhm.
Conservation easement is exactly that, where this piece of property, it's written in the trust of how it can be handled, and that's in perpetuity. Is that the word?
Yes.
So it cannot be broken, right? So it continues. So we want to protect the land by putting into earth trust, and by saying this land can only be stewarded and only be used for regenerative practices.
Mhm.
And the thing that we're doing very differently here is that every trust needs to have a beneficiary. Who is the beneficiary of this trust?
Mhm.
And we want to make the primary beneficiary of earth trusts to be the earth itself.
Yeah.
That, as far as I know, that hasn't been done before. And then, of course, the people that are stewarding the land, they could also be beneficiary and benefit of all the goods that can come from that land. But only if what they're doing is first benefiting the land. And
Gotcha.
how it's structured could go into it. But that's kind of what an art trust is in simple
Right.
terms.
Yeah, I mean, it's so fascinating and how we're going to keep articulating and understanding and writing this, so many people, myself included, we're not versed in the law, right? Like the laws of the land and the laws of all the things. So there's been this code of how we operate and how we contribute and how we sell and receive and take ownership and in all these things that's sort of like underlying our lives, that it's time to look at that, understand it, see what's been going on, and rewrite it so that it can be in the direction of life affirming, so we can live, right? So it's like an educational time too. We're all getting educated into what has been, how it's been, and how could it be, right?
Yeah. And one thing I just want to say about art trust, I think one reason they're not popular
Mhm.
is because uh, the value of the land usually goes down if you do that. And
Okay.
the idea, it's an art trust that it should never be sold again. It can't really sell the land anymore. You can only
Mhm.
sell the beneficiary rights to that land.
Hmm.
That makes sense. So if a developer wants to come and knock all the trees down and build a parking lot there or a mall, he cannot do that. So in those terms, he has less value on the market.
Yeah, right. Sticky stuff, but I think the basis of it is really just everyone's awakening to the fact that the earth is alive and she is needing our support to keep her, to sustain her, to regenerate. And this must take precedence over corporational greed and ownership.
There is a book I think that everyone should be a required reading for everyone that's involved with SoilDAO, and it's called Land.
Yeah.
And it talks about the downfall of humanity is the ownership of land. And it's a short
Yeah.
book. It's very dense. It's hard to read,
I love it. I can't wait. Sounds like a good challenge.
So good.
I'm gonna read it. I'm
But
into it.
I think the downfall of humanity is us owning nature, land. Like
Yeah,
how do I own this tree? This is my tree now. And
yeah,
all the benefits that come from this tree is mine. And only that, but if me owning it, if I wanted to cut it down, I could totally cut it down. I was like,
yeah.
this living
No,
being that now
totally.
that's slavery.
Yeah.
So we say slavery is not okay, but from my point of view, the worst slavery we've done to this to any living being on this planet is the planet itself. Like we feel like we have the complete right to do whatever the fuck we want to a piece of land. That's just not right.
No.
So,
Yeah.
and I'm not extremist, kind of like communist or whatever. Like, we should own our stuff. Like, I should own this is my shirt. This is my shirt. I wear it. uh, and it's okay to say this is my shirt, but to say this is my land,
Right.
is a little off to me.
I totally agree. I wonder what, and since we're in this whole vein of exploration, I wonder what you can speak to about, we're talking about rights, we're talking about land rights and the land having its own rights. And so, can you describe to me what are inalienable rights?
Well, so that's so long. Like I said, the land doesn't have sovereignty. We don't have sovereignty. This is a very fascinating thing because think is what I'm saying. Think that you're a 5-year-old, or think that I'm. So yeah, see if you can think as a 5-year-old. So if I'm talking to a
No
5,
problem.
if I talk to a 5-year-old and I say,
Please talk to me as a 5-year-old. I would love that.
yeah, so hey honey, like you see this planet that you were born on, and this
Yeah.
field here with all these things.
Hmm.
You see this tree that has apples on it. We cannot have this apple because it's not yours. Like, imagine if I try to explain that to a bird that flew by and saw that apple. I'm like, oh, hey, birdie, excuse me, but that is not your apple.
It's yours. Do
It's
you have
not
a
your.
permit for that?
You have a permit for that? Did you pay taxes? Did you? Uh,
Right?
so inalienable rights, think about your rights to exist on this planet is how I think it's. I was born on this planet. It was like it was given to me by the creator, and I should have the right to exist on this planet, to have the right to all the resources on this planet. I should have the right to eat from the tree. I should have a right to drink the water or from the streams. I should have the right to breathe the air. um, and that's becoming that's we don't think of that. It's like if you think about it for as a 5-year-old, like yeah, of course, should it be any other way? Well, no, it is. That's not okay, little boy or girl. You cannot take that apple because it's Johnny's apple, and you gotta pay him this piece of paper. You gotta give to him in order to get this apple. Makes no sense. So inalienable rights to me is the right of free speech, of right to like. So you and I can we have the right to converse amongst ourselves, right? That should be an inalienable right. Like I should have the right to talk to you, and I should have the right to freely express myself. And as we're talking, we decide that all my back hurts, and I'm like, oh, I'm really good at massage. You want me to massage your back? And like, so now we became into what's called like a contract. But now the way it's done these days, like for me to massage your back, and for you to let's say give me, $100 for that. The government comes in. It's like, oh yeah, you guys can't just do that. Where's my piece? Where's my 30%? Give me 30% now that you did. It makes no sense. And actually, there isn't a law anywhere that says that income taxes are a requirement.
Yeah.
So inalienable right is where it becomes relevant to what we're talking about is the right to private contract. So as private citizens, as sovereign citizens, as sovereign being on this planet, we have the sovereign right to enter in private contracts amongst yourselves. And that's being taken away from us, and but it's not being taken away. That's not the right saying. We have unknowingly given our rights away by putting our signatures on a lot of pieces of paper.
Mhm.
So every time you get a license of any sort, even driving license, you're really signing your rights away. I'm agreeing here. If a police officer pulls me over, I gotta pull over. That if he asks me to look at my license, I gotta give it to him. But I've given up my rights. If I don't sign that paper, then I don't have to play by those rules. And if you think about it, like the one that should be so obvious, for example, is paying your car registrations. I pay my car registration every year for the right to receive parking tickets and other tickets. And what is the benefit? Give me one benefit for me paying the state to register with them my car. Like they protect me. That when the car breaks down, they go fix it for me. Like what do they do for me? Anyway, so but I willingly willing to signing that paper and agreeing to it. But it's all baked in the system though, because a lot of people can afford to go buy their own car right out. They have to go to the bank, so the bank forces you to register. Bank won't even give you the loan until you register your car. So all these things, they won't even sell you a car if it's not registered. But there's a way to get around this. But long story short, inalienable right is your basic human rights to exist on this planet, including the
Great.
right to enter in private contract.
Got it. Yeah. So much more questions in that area, and it's so relevant and fantastic. But we're going to keep moving on because we could stick on any of these. These are to be continued. Talk to me about the Trinity model and why is it important?
The Trinity being the church. I mean, we already talked about two of these things, the inalienable rights. So the three Trinity you're referring to are the church, the PMA, which is a private membership association, and a trust. So we were talking about the trust, so that's one aspect. The
Yep.
PMA is just this right of private contract, but we can before we get into this contract of me massaging you and you giving me $100, we can sign an agreement that we've entered into a private contract. So if government comes and knock on our door and say, hey, you don't give me my 30%, like no, we've entered in a private contract and you're not welcome in this transaction. You know, well, we didn't invite you. The problem with the PMA becomes, so we could do that on a large scale, like as an organization. Instead of just you and I, we can have the same exact team with thousands of people, where we have a membership. Will become a good example of a PMA is HOAs, right? They've set up themselves. They create their own rules. HOAs has their own rules and regulations that are necessarily the same as even with the city. You know, they have a lot of leeways, but you know, you enter into HOA, and now we've entered just private agreements within that HOA. So it's basically protecting us. The PMA is protecting us in giving us the right to transact privately, and we sign these agreements. So if Big Brother knocks on the door, we say, "Hey, we didn't invite you." The problem that people makes no sense to people, because like, what do you mean? You know, like, why would they do that with corporations? Well, because with the corporations they do that because the moment you set up a corporation, you went and signed a piece of paper where you said, I'm welcoming,
Yeah.
inviting Big Brother, and I'm agreeing to play by Big Brother's rules and regulations, and I'm agreeing to pay Big Brother 30% of everything I make. So you've put your signature down and you've agreed to play by those rules. So with the PMA, we're not doing that. We're doing actually the opposite. We're explicitly saying Big Brother is not involved and they're not welcome here.
Got it.
So that's what the power of PMA is.
PMA.
Which is crazy because it sounds a lot like a DAO, and that's why we
Yeah.
also sold our PMA.
Right.
Most DAOs, which is heartbreaking, are set up as a corporation. And like you're not a DAO. You put the name DAO,
Yeah.
We gotta be really careful as we do things in the new way, that we're not just trying to get the existing in a better way or something, when in its very core it's rotten, right? So it's like where first principles become very, like, what are we trying to do, and reason from the bottom up, instead of like, oh, there's this organization, they're called corporations, oh, let's just put DAO on it and sign a piece of paper.
Yeah.
uh Recently I watched Silicon Valley, on the second or third episode, he goes to this lawyer, stacks of paper. He said, I marked everywhere you got a stack. Well, what is this? And the guy goes like, hey, lawyer, not lawyer. Just do what I'm telling you.
Yeah. Totally.
Uh, so that's the PMA. And the church is on top of that, because there's a lot of aspects to the church that I really enjoy. But so in this country, we have the right of free expression of beliefs and religion. And it was baked at its core that they're written, that the church and state should be separate. So there's just another layer of protection where we're separating ourselves from the state, and we're declaring and we're saying what we're doing is separate from the state. Big Brother is not invited here.
Yeah.
So, and this is kind of tricky because, again, a lot of stuff we're talking about, even the PMA and the trust and the church, there's a private way to do it. Private meaning that the public, meaning that the Big Brother is not invited.
Yeah.
Um, so a lot of people are setting up churches these days, kind of like, I'll just very example, a lot of people that are into mushroom journeying or ayahuasca journeying or stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's quote unquote easily could be seen as breaking the law. They set up a church, and it's like the church of mushroom church, and they gather and they do mushrooms, which is great. But a lot of those that I've talked to, at least all of the ones I've talked to, they go and seek the approval of Big Brother, and they want Big Brother to recognize them as a church.
Yeah.
So the moment you go and it's like it's in the name, you're like submitting. I'm submitting a form to you, and I'm
Totally.
submitting myself to you and asking for your permission to operate as a church.
Uh,
But that's not separating yourselves from the state. That's going under the boot of the state. And we saw that during COVID. When COVID, there were like a lot of people had the questions like, well, how is the state has the right to tell these churches to close their doors? Is because a lot of churches have done that. But there
ah,
are churches that never close their doors, never ask for masks, never ask for vaccines. Those were churches that were set up in the proper way, and the government couldn't tell them anything because they weren't submitted to the government.
gotcha. Oh, beautiful. Amazing. So good. I
And
love that.
the last thing I think I want to say about the church is that a church is, like I said earlier, DAO is only as powerful as its community.
Yeah.
We take the church to heart, and we really believe in its creed and its belief systems and its practices. And one thing that qualifies you as a church is that you need to congregate and preach. And we have been doing that. We love doing that, but it's been such a powerful way to build a community and strengthen the community. And so it's serving on so many levels. I don't, not just these protection things that I'm talking about, but it's really serving to build a really powerful and really potent and really connected community where you can bring all you we when we do church, we don't talk about business. We talk about, hey, how are you? What's going on? Uh, and that's, yeah. So I think there's a lot of benefits for church. So that's the Trinity: church, PMA, trust. You can think of it as a triangle. Church at the top, PMA.
Who came up with this Trinity model? Do you know? Where did it come from?
I mean, I learned it from Bradley, but
Interesting. As just a side note, just to
yeah, I
see
don't know if you got it from
where
somewhere,
some of the origins are.
because all these things exist separately, and there was this the
Right.
doing is like, well, no, we want to incorporate all three at the same
Yeah.
time. They're interconnected.
Yeah. 100%. Okay. Tell me about your opinion of what's the difference between regeneration and conservation. We talked about the conservation easement and then the trust and the difference, but tell me a little bit more in your opinion, the difference between conservation and regeneration.
Okay, I love this question very much.
I'm so glad. And if I get up to, the sun is going down, so I'm going to be in the dark in a minute, so I might have to turn on my lights.
Yeah, I might have to pee too. So, um, my answer might not make sense at the beginning, but so it's like, uh I mean, no, let's go this. Conservation usually means to conserve something, to kind of protect it and like save it. But if you're conserving something, but you're not stewarding it and you're not regenerating it, it's gonna start dying really fast. Most people don't know that because there's this belief that it's a wrong belief. It's this belief that if you leave nature to its own devices, if you leave it alone, it's gonna thrive. And that is actually not the case. And most people don't know that. And I think one question that I love to contemplate on is like, what is our purpose on this planet as a species, not as individual, but as a species? If the bees make honey and pollinate, and the worms eat stuff and make soil, and a tiger knows how to be a tiger, but the human doesn't know how to be a human, which is which is the good and bad. But in terms of if we as all humans had one common purpose on this planet, to me the answer is straight up to be stewards. And I've seen it firsthand, and I've worked with a lot of people who've seen it firsthand. But I have this person that's devoted his whole life to trees specifically, and he said a lot of rich people will call me and be like, "Hey, we bought this land and we preserve it, and it's been sitting, and now everything's dying on it." He's like, "Well, what have you done to it?" Like, "Nothing." Well, that's why. And he so you have to. He believes when you ask him what's the purpose of humans, he says is to grow tall trees. Because here in California we have the sequoias, and he says that they wouldn't be grown lived as long as they have and they are, and be as tall as they are if they weren't the way that Native Americans took care of them and stewarded them.
Mm.
So they're naturally not designed to grow that tall.
Wow.
In every ecosystem, everything, including the planet, has a lifespan, and it was born and it's gonna die. Same with every ecosystem, and as it was born, it was gonna die. Like the Amazon rainforest it was born, it was gonna die, and it's just cycles of life. But it's proven that if a human being comes into that system and steward it properly, because there's things only a human can do, no other creature could do that. Even like the thing we did with the water, like we've got, like, Austin walks around with these 5 vials of water. There's no other creature. And when I was down in Costa Rica in March, he's like, "Get me some water from there." So what other creature can take a little bit of water from Costa Rica and bring it to and do a prayer and ceremony? Even that part. There's something unique about our vision and perspective of the planet. So that's the difference between stewardship and conservation.
Mm.
If you steward something, and we've seen it at all. We've seen it like even not stewarding, not conserving, but if you get like even a piece of unfertile ground with poor soil and low vegetation, then within 20-year period, it could become a fucking jungle. With such bio-rich biodiversity and all that. You can watch if you have the biggest little farm.
I've seen parts of it. It's so good.
It's so good, and it's in 7 years they completely transported a piece of land, and they're They steward.
A lot of different
Generally, yeah.
stories about that. It's so inspiring.
So imagine that they bought this 200 acres that they bought, and they
Yeah.
just were conserving it, but not stewarding it.
Right.
That's right there, the answer to it.
That's so beautiful. This conversation is so inspiring. I love what you're talking about. It connects all kinds of dots, and I feel it in my heart and in a spirituality sense and how it connects to the church. And I'm just loving you. Thank you.
Oh, oh, thank you.
You know, in the way that you're saying that we're the only unique creatures that can steward the earth the way that we do. And you are the only unique creature who can bring these things together. I see you as like a living bridge.
Oh,
I also pulled two cards and I got the king.
no way.
Got the king and the river.
No way.
Yeah,
Fuck.
baby. Yeah, baby. We'll dive into that later. This is the river
Okay.
and this is the king.
Wow.
So, the king and the river.
Oh, I love it. Love it.
Okay, moving on. We only got a couple more because you've been, tackling all these awesome questions. I want you to tell me, what is the difference between dirt and soil? I'm wondering if they have connections to, conservation versus stewardship, right? Is there?
Well, it blows my mind. That's an extremely important question because, first of all, most people don't know that the problem we're facing with
Yeah,
the soil. I just want to say a few words about that. It's like we're
yeah,
literally, some people are referring to it as we so first of all, as humanity, we live in the sixth mass extinction of this planet.
yeah.
What does that mean? Is like there have been five mass extinctions where like 99% of all species on this planet have died off,
Mhm,
and the planet has found a way to regenerate again.
mhm.
The beautiful thing about this is, just to give you a different perspective, is each time the planet has come back with more biodiversity, more beauty, more magic.
Yeah,
So I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, because in a million years from now, they can come back with species that are way more magical than these now. Um, so, but that said, in my heart, I don't like to see all these species dying daily, literally going extinct.
yeah,
But one of those is literally the soul is go extinct. We have a soul extinction event happening on the planet, which
yeah,
is contributing to all these other lives going extinct. Because most life springs out of the soil, uh, then everything else, if the soul's suffering, everything else is going to start suffering eventually. Um, and so most people, when they think about soul, they think about dirt. And there is
mhm.
a difference. So, and when I tell people, what do you mean we're running out of soil? Like, look, there's soil. Look right here. Here, they grab a piece of the of
Right.
dirt. They're like, here, we got unlimited amounts of dirt.
Yeah,
Uh, and I'm like, yeah, we have maybe unlimited amounts of dirt, but we don't have limited amounts of soil. So
mhm.
a healthy piece of soil, if you grab a scoop of it, has more living organisms in it than there are humans on this planet.
Wow.
So it has billions of microorganisms that are on it. So that's a healthy soil. And when I say we're
Yeah,
unhealthy soil, now instead of tens of billions of microbial life, now it's down to half of that, or a
yeah,
billion, So when you go to dirt, it has almost none of that. So that's dirt has no microbial life in it, and so has rich microbial life in it. It's burst with diverse microbial life, right? It's biodiverse,
yeah,
and it's teeming with life. And so when that life's healthy, you're healthy. When that life's biodiverse and active, uh, you eat anything that comes out of that soil, it's gonna have that same components. And then you could think about it in this way, like if the soil, it's linked. That's why it got me going from the beginning of the origin story. That when I was looking for immune system, it's basically all your immune system. It starts with your gut bacteria and the health of your gut, and then if the gut health is not healthy, everything starts from there. It impacts your brain, impacts everything. So it all starts from the soil in your gut, because what you make in soil, right? Like what comes on the other end is basically soil.
Yeah.
Uh, so the soil in your gut, it's not going to be healthy, and it cannot be healthy because microorganisms are not there. So the bacteria that you are what your bacteria eats, but more importantly, you are more what your bacteria poops.
Totally.
So that's why when you say you are what you eat, is because you're feeding what you eat to your bacteria, and then those microorganisms, whatever they poop, that's what goes into your bloodstreams, that's what it goes in your brain, that's what it goes to the rest of the organs. So you are what you your your microbial life.
I wanted to make t-shirts because we could talk about this topic for a bit because I've actually done a lot of study in this as well, including some of the links to what the ancient Egyptians were actually taking out from their deceased ones. So they were actually removing their microbes. They were taking their intestines
Oh
and saving them.
wow.
Anyways, we could talk about microbes a lot, but I wanted to make t-shirts that says, "My microbes made me do it."
But it's actually true, they do.
I know, they're the ones running the whole ship. I mean, when you
Yeah.
talk about hormones and attraction and who you're attracted to and how you share microbes, it's all microbes. They're running the whole thing.
Literally, so I'm in the middle of this fast, as you know, and I've been watching a shit ton of videos on fasting because it's not easy to go through a fast, but I get really inspired by learning about all the benefits.
Yeah.
It literally just guys like, we're not very few people are metabolically flexible and all that because of these bacteria. He was saying like, okay, well, you did a fast for a day, then you grab a cookie, and it's okay. Your bacteria make you do it. It wasn't you, because if you keep going, you're gonna win that battle because the the bad bacteria is gonna start dying off. They die. That's one thing that happens during fasting is they start dying
Oh,
off.
I know. Oh, have you seen like pictures all zoomed in on like Candida? They look like little monsters with teeth. They're like, ah!
Oh my God, I've seen little pictures of what the vaccine molecules look like.
Oh yeah, dude. Oh,
They look like a little sauce. They go around just like sucking.
totally. They're like,
Yeah, with teeth.
fuck. My microbes made me do it. So good.
So good.
Okay,
Um, and I
great.
want to say just this one thing about soil. And again, I
Yeah,
hate the conversation about global warming
yeah.
because it's such a confusing, like, what the fuck does that mean? What can I do? But when it comes to soil, think of two things: food and poop.
Food
Your
and
poop
poop.
is soil. All the poop from all the animals around the planet, all the poop, even the tree pooping its leaves, if you will, all that is what makes soil. And the more biodiverse that is, the more healthy that soil is. Uh, so everyone, but again, on most places, compost toilets are illegal. So we have
Right.
this rich thing that makes soil, but I'm sending
We
it
can't even use it. Yeah. And
send
we put it in our fresh water.
yeah, imagine.
Somebody has this awesome quote that's like, "We're the only animals crazy enough to shit in our fresh water. No other animal does that."
Insane.
Yeah. Why
So
would they poop where they drink? That's not what they're
so
gonna.
and then we all eat food.
Yeah.
We all have food scraps. It's inevitable. Anything you cook, you eat, you're gonna have food scraps.
Yeah.
Well, where's our food scraps go? Most of the food scraps are going now to the landfill, creating methane gases.
Yeah.
It's fucking crime. So we can all save our poop, and maybe we can't all save our poop, but if we all have compost toilets and you all save our food scraps, that's enough to solve the problem essentially.
Totally. I love that. I think that's bullet points and spearheads in the movement. And people just it's again, it's an education issue. We just got to educate.
Yeah,
And then
that's
we got to take the red tape off of it because I mean, especially in California, and we could go down that fucking rabbit hole about all the red tape in California that you got to have a permit and you can't do this and it's illegal to do that and you got to sign up for that. You know, it's just like that's why so many people are moving to quote red states like Texas where there's less red tape on their freedom.
exactly, and that's why the trusts, those we put it
Right.
under the trust and we put it
Yeah.
under the church, and now
Yeah.
this land is stepped away from these jurisdictions and stuff.
Yeah. All right, my love. Well, we're getting to the end. We've covered so many of these things. There's like, I definitely, you and I think we should just keep having awesome conversations and kind of specify some of these awesome bullet points that we can take a lot of content from. But we've got basically, the last questions we have. One thing that I'm really curious about is I'd like you to speak to like a brand new person, a person who doesn't know anything about anything. Just like me, I'm learning about a DAO and I'm learning about stewardship and I'm learning about all these things. I want you to tell me, specific to SoilDAO, how can I get involved if I don't have like crypto experience? Where can I fit into the DAO? Give me, what's the invitation? How can I be involved in your vision?
I mean, the first and simplest and best way to get involved is come to church.
Right.
So church, what makes it a church is one that it's open to all. So if you want to learn and be part of this community, come to church and start meeting people. But if you want to help to be part of the DAO, is so right now at this point we're in the building phase of the DAO. So if people don't want to help us build the DAO, then how do you want to contribute, right? That's being part of it, being decentralized, being open. So if you have, and one part of it could be education, right? Like we have people that know nothing about Web3, but are very passionate about permaculture. And we have people that are very passionate about Web3, but don't know anything about permaculture.
Yeah.
Get the vision or the importance of the vision. So I think however you feel, that's the beautiful thing about DAO. Like if you want to come and contribute. And then that's where we need to figure out having tokens and all that, whatever can contribute can get rewarded in tokens that one day hopefully going to be worth many, be worth a lot. So I don't know if I'm doing answering this question, but
You are. I want to steer you a little bit. So I'm brand new. I'm going to come to church. How do I join the conversation? Am I joining the Discord?
yes, the question answer that is yes. No more signal.
Okay. So I'm going to join the conversation via Discord. That's another rabbit hole. Why Discord? We'll talk about that later. So come to church, which is where you're going to meet everyone. Join the conversation in the Discord. You're also going to meet people. And on the Discord channel, I'm going to learn about the ways that I might contribute, as well as get inspired with my own ideas about maybe my own specificity, right? Like I'm good at this, or I'm not good at that, or I want to learn more about Web3. Who's got some answers around that? It's really about getting into the community so that we can start connecting people and their expertises. Yeah.
And later down the line, so the reason I'm having a little bit of hard time answering the question because I don't talk to random people. If someone asks me like, "What do you do?" Like some people won't even know out because
right.
So I'm usually at a seminar or I'm at whether like in Istanbul in a Web3 gathering or permaculture gathering or something. Like there is an event. There's a reason I'm talking to these people about. So then I'll know where they can fit. So I don't. we're not at a point to just be inviting everyone yet. We will be at that point at some point. And then
Well, this,
people that don't have land and stuff that want to contribute, they can contribute by even buying the token that we don't have yet. uh,
yeah.
to support the ecosystem and all stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking easy stuff because, you know, we do want to take these interviews and all of this content and weave it into some promo that will be hopefully disseminated amongst the peoples, including people who don't know anything. You know, we're going to start in our circles, obviously, but I like to just kind of see if we can harness, not maybe not today, but soon, you know, some really easy actionables like buy the token or get on the newsletter, you know, shit where people can just be like, I'm curious, what do I do now, right?
Exactly. So if you care about alternative economy, if you care about the planet, you want to steward it, and if you care about, if you believe that soil is a very viable way to do that.
Yeah.
I actually kind of almost want to say a couple more things about soil because it blows my mind just when I learn about this stuff, just like why is no one talking about soil? And there's now starting a little more, definitely even more than 2 years ago, more.
Yeah.
But we talk about water, we talk about carbon,
Mhm.
but to me, we don't have water or carbon problem, we have a soil problem. Because
Yeah.
every time you till the soil, you're releasing carbon in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Every time you're destroying soil, you're releasing carbon in the atmosphere. Soil, healthy soil is the biggest carbon sink in the planet.
Yeah.
And not only that, but we don't have water problem because I'm like, how do we have a water problem? It's the same amount of water on this planet that it was 1,000,000 years ago. That one drop of water hasn't left the planet. Where'd it go? Where soil is depleting, we're depleting it, but we're not depleting water. We have a water management problem. And the way to manage water is with soil. Soil manages the water bed, soil purifies the water. So if you have healthy soil, it absorbs that water, it refeeds the aquifers. Even 1%, if you increase the organic matter in soil by 1%, which is not a lot at all, it absorbs like 80 or 90% more water.
Cool. Yeah.
It's like, and so that's something like we don't have a water problem, we have a water management problem, and we have a carbon management problem. Um,
Yeah. I love it.
so if you care about this whole global warming, climate crisis, the reason, as far as I know, and I haven't met person to convince me otherwise, there isn't a bigger bang for your buck than concentrating on the soil. So if you care about soil and the planet and the global warming and all this stuff, come help us build this project.
Yes. I love it.
Find a
Okay.
place. We'll find a place for you.
We'll find a place for you. Yeah. And get in the conversation. That's really kind of, you know, what we want to get into. Um, amazing. We've pretty much covered all of the main points on this particular
Yeah,
list of
it
questions.
feels really good. It's been pretty.
Yeah, we're pretty robust at this point.
Yeah. Now tell me about the cards.
Well, I got the king and the river.
Yeah. Tell me? What does that mean?
I just was kind of pulling it. I mean, first of all, when we're dealing with archetypes, it's like, let's think about the king, right? There's so many good things that there's, you know, so many rich connotations in our collective consciousness around kingship, right? It's really interesting because it's about ownership, it's about governance,
Yeah.
right? It's about leadership and, you know, making decisions and like being an elder, being someone that people trust, right? We're talking about trusts and trustless and also we're talking about heritage and origins, like how the land or how the kingdom gets passed down from one king to their son. And I'm just curious, and I love the all of the threads that weave together around when you think about the king and to, you know, um, it's like hereditary, right? It's noble birth. And think about all the stories that we've all read and created and said to each other that's about that. That's about noble born and not noble born, right? And the rule of the king and the queen and the good king and the bad king and the wars that continue to happen around, like whose ownership of the land. I mean, it's just amazing. Our history as human beings, as we have owned and claimed and shaped the land and our own culture, is very much tied up into this beautiful archetype of the king, right? So this is what she says about the card. If our lives are imagined as a kingdom containing the entire spectrum of the human experience, the king presides over it all. Through the lens of the king, we assess the state of our land, make decisions, and rule accordingly. Therefore, the king must be thoroughly and regularly vetted so as to avoid corruption. Recognize the dual nature of the king. He is either seated in benevolence and strength, guiding towards peace, or he's oppressing the weak out of a need to control. There is not much middle ground. Some think of the king as the ultimate expression of the ego, yet the great kings of mythology and history serve from an egoless place. They take their throne with grace and humility, knowing the divine uses them as a channel to heal deep and long-standing discrepancies in the kingdom.
Wow. I mean, weirdly appropriate for this conversation.
Super appropriate. I mean, we are literally talking about vetting, the governance in order to avoid corruption. And we're so far off that track. Corruption it's happening, right? And now we're thinking, okay, how do we rebuild? How do we take the throne and get into the seat of the benevolent king?
Yeah. Oh. Oh. So good.
So good.
So good.
So good, darling. We also got the river.
River. Yeah, tell us about.
So I still, I had to print out this thing, all of her. Ooh, I think I'm close. The ocean. I thought the river is really close. The river. There is a reason so many rituals of change and rebirth take place in the river. It is forgiveness embodied in physical form. Damn. Without asking anything in return, the river washes away what is no longer necessary, smoothing over sharp edges and accepting all our mistakes and grievances. Once we step into the river, we are no longer in control. It carries us farther down the stream of transformation than we planned to go. Its waters have a special gift for reflecting back to us a new and dreamlike vision. Once the tears have passed, we see ourselves as we haven't before, with a little more lightness, grace, and fluidity. Keep in mind that you that stands within the river is the real you, full of deep emotion and potential, nothing to hide, nothing to judge. May you drink in the sight of your true self.